The fourth China-EU strategic dialogue is underway in Brussels. It's being co-chaired by China's State Councillor Yang Jiechi and the EU's High Representative of Foreign Affairs, Catherine Ashton. Since it was first established 9 years ago, the political dialogue has tackled a wide range of issues, including foreign policy, economic cooperation, and climate change. Now, for the very latest on that, we're joined live by our correspondent Jack Barton in Brussels. Thanks for being with us on 8 Today, Jack. So we know that Monday is the opening day of this strategic talks. Tell us what's been discussed so far and what's more on the agenda.
Well, there's quite a bit on the agenda. These began as fairly low-profile talks back in 2005, but were upgraded in 2010. And as you mentioned before, it's now face-to-face with Catherine Ashton, the foreign policy chief here, and State Councillor Yang Jiechi, who is considered here in Europe to really be one of the key architects of China's foreign policy. As usual, of course, trade is going to be high on the agenda, especially with Europe and China having one of the world's biggest trading relationships at the moment. But it is at a time when the global economic recovery is still fragile, and we're seeing an increasing number of flashpoints around the world, particularly when it comes to social unrest. They're going to be talking a lot about that, but they're also going to be looking at investment. Europe's going to be seeking greater investment within China. China will be seeking for the EU to end its ban on high-tech exports to China. So direct issues, broader issues, but they're also going to be talking about cultural exchange and, as you mentioned before, foreign policy. This is getting higher and higher on the agenda. It didn't used to feature very much. This year it's going to be one of the highest priorities.
Well, it seems that this time foreign policy will be playing a very significant role in these talks. So what will the leaders be discussing on that front?
Well, there's a lot to discuss. Of course, China has been expanding diplomatically and with trade into Africa heavily over the last few years, so there's going to be a big focus on Africa, but also the Middle East peace process. And they're going to be talking about Syria, the conflict in Syria, how to bring a political solution to that conflict. They're also going to be looking at Iran and the nuclear program there and the talks that are going forward, trying to not end that program, but to ensure that it isn't weaponized so that Iran doesn't build nuclear weapons, something that China has been very much a party to. And they'll be discussing that in depth as those talks proceed quite well. And we heard from the Iranian president at Davos saying that he saw no major impediment now to a full conclusion of those talks. But they're also going to be talking about Central Asia, and they're going to be talking, of course, about the rising tensions between Japan and China. Catherine Ashton, of course, issued a criticism or a rebuke to Shinzo Abe after that visit to the Yasukuni Shrine. But what they're also seeking is assurances from China that this isn't going to escalate any higher than a diplomatic row, because of Europe, of course, has a very long memory of diplomatic incidents or small incidents or rows between states that led into something much worse. And everybody's very keen here. We've seen this discussed more and more over the last month in Europe. Very keen to see that this just remains as a diplomatic dispute.
Well, Jack Barton talking to us from Brussels. Thank you so much for that.